Welcome to Motorcycle Transmission 4. I'm your host, Tom Bieler. If you want to know about me, you can go to homeagain.com. But right now we're talking about Mr. Paul Gast. Hey, Paul, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I have known of Paul for a long time, probably since about 2007. I was working in a Suzuki dealer and local to your shop, and you guys were ordering just hundreds of Hayabusa crank bushings and all these little pieces. And I quickly found out that you guys were, one of the biggest drag racing engine companies around and have been doing it for years. And, at the time I was just kind of a general hobbyist. And even now I kind of am. I don't specialize in any one thing. I kind of just like motorcycles in general. But give me just a brief summary of, who you are and how long you've been around and what you do.
Okay, well, I'm Paul Gast. My company, I'm the owner and starter of my company, Fast by Gast. We're in Grand Island, New York. Been here, I started in business proper in 1973. And how did I get to that? Well, I had street bikes when I was 14. I started having motorcycles.
Okay.
And then they were legal street bikes when I was 16.
Okay, that makes sense.
And my brother, who I owe all this to, my brother John, we're very close, and he was a drag racer with an old gas coupe back in the days at Niagara Dragway, right here in Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Isn't 5 miles from here.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah. So I was the tag around kid. I'm the one who went and got the screwdriver and did all the handy running around and polishing parts and doing these kind of things. And my brother was, I idolized him.
Yeah.
And I used to go to the track with him. Then all of a sudden I got to be like 15 and I said, well, maybe I need to take my Honda out here and see how I can do.
Okay. And what model Honda did you have back then?
It was a 305 Honda back.
Oh, cool.
Very first one. Yeah. And as luck would have it, I was kind of good at it.
At drag racing?
Yeah, okay. I don't know why. I mean, I was already riding it, but I think I was about 15, and I said, well, I got to try this at the drag strip.
Yeah.
Because there was other bikes there, and it kind of caught my eye.
Okay.
And because I was always liking the bikes as well as all the cars, and I'm a drag race fan big time all the way. And so I ran it. I did really good, and I started noticing that I was maybe doing better than others that had the same type of equipment.
Okay.
So it appeared I had some sort of a skill to ride these drag bikes.
Yeah.
It's a street bike Honda back in the day.
Okay.
And then the manufacturers started making faster bikes, like the Kawasaki 3-cylinder triples, two-stroke triples that almost all old-time guys have had one back in the day.
Sure.
That was a very popular, low-cost way to go fast.
Okay.
Or even get killed on them. They were brutal.
Yeah.
But they were brutal fast. So I bought me one in 1970, a brand new one, and from the little shop Johnny's in Middleport. Anyways, I get it. I go out and I run it. And I'm good with that thing, it seems,
And was that the
H1?
The H1?
3-cylinder 500cc.
500,
it was before the 750 triple that I made my company's fame with.
Okay.
So I get this Kawasaki out there and I run it. I started reading up a couple things and mostly experimented with a couple things and maybe shaved the heads a little bit and did this and did that. All of a sudden the thing was faster. And I said, well, now I got to maybe play with the cylinder ports and such.
Okay.
I did so, and it was faster and got to be pretty darn fast. Then all of a sudden, a guy would come up to me at the racetrack and say, and this is the start of my company, say, hey, let's start with friends did this.
Sure.
Okay, not strangers. Friends with me, well, it's the same thing.
So they seen you were doing well.
Oh, yeah,
they
I was way faster with that. Can you do that to mine? Hell yeah,
sure.
Of course. So we did it. And then it was fast. And his friend and another one of my friends come up. Maybe we did 4, 5, 6, even more.
Yeah.
I was like that. And then going, oh, I mean, this is fun and I'm making these people happy, but
right.
What the heck?
Right,
I got to turn this into a bit of a business to some degree. Certainly not a proper business. This is in the early 70s.
Yeah. So, and you're how old at this time when you're racing this H1?
Well, I can tell you exactly. 21.
So you're 21 years old, and you
I'd
got
already
this
been doing the
H1.
Hondas.
And you've already been, and with the Hondas, did you start modifying the motors on those too?
Not a lot.
Okay, but when you got this Kawasaki,
Well,
that's when
this is
you
a hot
really,
rod,
yeah,
much more of a hot rod than the
yeah,
Hondas were.
right. So at that age, back in that decade, you're decking your heads and everything just to try to find a little extra power to
I
go a
had
little
no
bit
machines, by the
faster.
way. I had to figure that all out.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, so we turned all of a sudden, I put a little sticker with my home phone number on it on the side of the cylinder heads.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they had a motorcycle drag race event at Niagara Dragway. And I went out there and got hooked on all these drag bikes.
Right away, pretty much, or because you were already drag racing.
I was already drag racing,
Yeah.
but this was like in 71 or 2, this
Yeah.
event, big event.
And you were racing a bike that could still be ridden on the street, but you took it to the
this
track.
street
So it
bike.
wasn't a purpose-built drag bike at this
Oh,
point.
no, not
Okay.
at this point.
Yeah.
But this is how we got customers all of a sudden.
Yeah. So you were basically building hot rods at this point in the motorcycle world. Stuff
Right.
that guys were ripping on the street and taking to the track on the weekend to show off.
Exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
exactly what happened.
Okay.
Yep. So, and then all of a sudden, I was able to buy a set of exhaust pipes that made a big difference on these things, and we learned how to tune to that, and that made even a bigger difference.
Yeah.
And the escalation is pretty obvious. It
Sure,
just kept
of course.
moving up.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to be the fastest back then and that kind of thing. I didn't mean that much, but I was quite interested in making them run better and making the person who was getting it happy.
Sure.
And then also just getting some money back. Everything
Of
was
course,
in the hundreds
yeah.
of dollars back then, a couple $100 bucks.
know, yeah.
It was
yeah.
such a different
$100
thing,
is like $1,000 nowadays.
well,
yeah.
yep, probably.
Pretty close.
So, yep. So all of a sudden, the word was starting to get out. And then I did one for a guy down in Cincinnati, Ohio. Boom. And his buddy wanted, you get the idea, it just went. And then I did one for someone in Europe. And then all of a sudden they knew about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was 1973 then, that after the big event in Niagara Falls, and after I've been running this, after I've been running the Kawasaki for 2 years, that's when we decided to make this a business.
Yeah.
So we've been doing this for 52 years.
Yeah. So really what happened was, because nowadays, obviously, anyone can put any commercial out for any product they're selling and put it in front of the entire world.
Oh, we didn't have that.
Back in the 70s, right, you didn't have that. It was really your phone number on the side of a cylinder head that won a race. And then the next guy looks down at that cylinder head, says, maybe I should give that guy a call.
Yeah, and he didn't take
and
his
it just
cell
kept
phone
spreading around.
and take a picture of the sticker.
Right.
By the way.
He had to
go find a scratch pad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's how they
I tell people all the time that, a lot of the internet marketing is certainly a great tool to have, but if you don't have the right product, the right product can succeed without all that. And if you don't have the right product, no matter what you do, it won't succeed.
Mm-hmm.
The proof is in the pudding, as you will,
Yeah, really.
So.
This was almost 25 years before cell phones, for crying out loud. Yeah.
So at this point, you've got people interested worldwide, and now you're thinking, I need to actually make a business out of this.
Exactly. I was my brother and I were in the TV antenna business.
Okay.
And cable was just starting to take hold. So we knew there was a time frame on this. So I did this for some years.
Yeah.
And then in 73, we went Fast by Gast, and I actually rented from my brother, the same very brother that
got you into it.
That got me into it. Yeah. And he's a motorhead from day one as well.
Yeah,
and,
good.
I consider myself absolutely a motorhead, drag race fan and motorhead.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you're a drag race fan, I mean, it's all in the motor. I mean, obviously, you have to set up the chassis a certain way.
The motor,
but really, the motor is the heart of it, and it's the crown jewel of the bike.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first got into doing it, you were saying you were specializing in kind of the Kawasaki triples.
Mm-hmm.
And how long was that your main focus as kind of your flagship bike that you were running?
To about 1982.
Okay.
Now, in the late 70s and early 80s, the triple stuff was unbelievable.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, we had hundreds of cylinders here.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's 3 on a motor, and I must have had, 30, 40 motors worth of them around working on. So now I'm working pretty much every day, way into the wee hours, sometimes well past midnight and things like that. really was a lot of physical work.
Sure.
No marketing involved other than this little
Word
bit
of
we talked
mouth,
about.
yeah.
Word of mouth was the whole thing.
Yeah, of course.
And then I started running, when I started following the drag circuit, there was a circuit that was just kicking in then,
Yeah.
kind of good timing. And I got into that, and they had a little magazine, and I took
Put
out
an
little
ad.
tiny ads. Oh
Yeah.
boy, where was I going to get the $40 for the ad? You know, but there was no internet, so
right.
close.
Yeah.
So people would get the magazine, and they'd be reading this, and then they could call me.
Yeah.
And I stayed plenty busy. I used to port cylinder heads with the phone on my ear, on my shoulder, and grind. People would say to me, "What is that ungodly sound? Is there something wrong?"
You're just grinding away.
I said, "I can't stop."
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but I
Sure.
have to work too.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because a lot of times,
old school.
well, in this industry, a lot of times people just always expect everyone they get on the phone to just take all this time for them. And unfortunately, it's not the reality, because if you do a good job, that means that you're getting work. And if you're getting work, that means that you don't have time to just talk on the phone all day.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, people call around and they think a guy is maybe rude or short with them. But at the end of the day, it's a business. I mean, I love talking shop as much as the next guy, but, you got to keep it moving still at the same time.
I'm still to this day on the phone plenty.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, and maybe a little selective. We do have a little bit of the line going on nowadays where, look, he's on another call, or he's out running a machine, or whatever he's doing. Can you email him?
Yeah.
I start emailing around 6:30 in the morning, and I'll do them all day long, because I kind of quick on them, you know what I mean? But I do them all day and weekends. So the guy's at a racetrack and he's got my product out there and he's got a question or an issue, a tuning thing, he can email me, and I'm real likely going to get it and answer him right back quick.
Yeah.
And they like that a real lot.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah,
and really, at the end of the day,
personal touch, I think they think is nice, which I like doing it.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing that I try to offer in my repair shop, is this personalized experience where I'm very accessible to my clients. Mm-hmm. But if you're not my client, you know what I mean? I don't owe you my time, but for my clients, and I will do just about anything to make sure that they don't, need anything, and to make sure that my work is holding up well out in the real world, So at this point, you're doing mostly porting and polishing cylinder heads?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And carburetors and pipes.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
Things for all up to the 2 strokes only till the early 80s, 82-ish, 83. Then we still did those.
Right.
Matter of fact, we
and
still
you probably
do
always
them now.
will. Yeah.
Yeah. We do now restorations and hot rod motors even now.
Yeah.
And but we got into the 4-stroke stuff heavy then. And it couldn't have been just a couple years later, I was building me a Pro Stock bike.
Yeah. Okay. And then what was your platform that you kind of switched to as your flagship at that point that you were taking to the track with you?
The first one was still a Kawasaki. So it would be a Kawasaki Z1 platform, GPZ, let's say.
Okay.
And now they were into full drag bikes. Full.
The whole chassis and everything.
Well, we went into the chassis business too in the mid 80s.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe even 83 or so. I think we went into the chassis business, built a lot of frames and a lot of finished bikes. And that was a challenge in its own right, because you couldn't just build them. You had to know what you were doing and why.
Sure. Yeah.
So I had to go to the track. I've been to a lot of races.
I'm sure.
I mean, real lot of them.
Yeah.
Learning. What my customers got, one of our frames or chassis out there, or whole bike was a common thing. And I'd be watching that close and helping them tune and get that thing to go so that others would want it. And that was a real popular
That's how you're
thing.
selling the product,
Yeah.
Now, were you still doing a lot of racing of your own, or were you mostly doing support for you? So
No. I was racing all the time.
So you never stopped actually getting on the bike and going down the strip?
No, I've been racing nonstop since. It has certainly tapered off as I got older.
Sure, not every weekend, probably.
Well, the traveling, the logistics, the races are in the South. I mean, it's gotten to be very, very expensive, time-consuming.
It is,
I've decided to spend a little more time at home and things.
Sure, of course,
But I still go.
But you still do saddle up on a bike once in a while, right?
Oh yeah, and the
Yeah.
thing I got is off the charts. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got into the four strokes in like the early '80s or so, when kind of like when the Z1 kind of
Yeah.
became like the J
Yeah.
motor,
Yeah.
right? Which is,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So my Kawasaki 1000 has the J motor in it. Certainly the less cool motor if you ask like any vintage enthusiast, but it seems like it really became a popular drag platform as
Hmm.
soon as it was around. And
Hmm.
when I chose my bike, because I was kind of looking for something that I could kind of hot rod up just enough where there was aftermarket support for it, and the J motor has plenty of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know the So you got into like the GPZ stuff, and at this point you're building these motors and you're putting them right into a drag specific chassis.
Pretty much everything we do, even now, is pretty much mostly drag race related, whether it be engine components, cylinder heads, blocks, transmissions, all these kind of things. But uh, we do whole motors. I just
Yeah.
delivered days ago. I delivered a absolute showpiece J model motor,
Okay.
top to bottom, absolute show winner motor, inside and out, to a fella in Connecticut, and it is one of the just the nicest things I ever made because he
Really?
wanted it. So nice.
Now
And I said,
what?
we can do it.
Okay, so as a J motor owner myself, and to anybody that doesn't know, it's basically the second generation of KZ 1000 motor.
Exactly. Yeah.
They lost the kickstart, a few other changes, but very similar to the early
Yeah.
Z9,
Similar. Very
Z900 and
similar.
Z1s. So just as a J motor enthusiast myself, what were the specs that this guy wanted the bike to be
Okay,
built
well, it
to?
was pretty simple. Of course, we start at the bottom and we inspect and weld the crankshaft, and we put um, uh, we undercut the transmission gears. You know
Yep.
all about that one.
Yes, I
And
do.
right, and then we put a new cam chain in, all new gaskets and seals everywhere. I mean, absolute hardware, not one
Perfect.
used
Yeah.
screw anywhere. This guy wanted
Yeah.
an absolute mint motor, so we did it. They're
Yeah.
not all like that.
Sure. No, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we did a big bore piston kit. We did a 1075 kit.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
MTC kit? Or
this kit was a Weisco kit.
okay.
Yeah, and big bore it, and then we did a what else? Oh, cylinder head. Of course, we ported it. New valves,
Yep.
springs, all those things. Camshafts, even.
Yeah. Did you cut oversized valves or just ran stock valves or?
No, this one got a 1 millimeter intake, and I think the stock size exhaust. It's all
Okay.
about a matter of fitting them in there.
Sure.
For
Yeah.
the street
Yeah.
application.
And that's kind of what I'm getting
I
at.
hope he's
Yeah.
building the bike to match the motor. I think he will.
Yeah.
Certainly now after he picked it up.
I'm
I
sure.
know they were quite pleased
Yeah.
with it. So power wise, it's probably going to be I'm going to guess probably on the rear wheel somewhere in the 150 something range.
Really?
Probably
Okay.
about the same as a Hayabusa.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, did you put cams in it or
Oh, yeah.
the stock cams? Okay.
Oh, no. We
Yeah.
put cams in it. We put shim under buckets in it. Guy wanted everything the
Yeah.
best.
Sure.
Powder coated the whole thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What color powder coat? Black?
Yeah. Satin black.
Yeah.
I forget the name they call it, but it was quite a challenge.
Sure.
Because when you try to do something business wise, it's nice to make a profit.
Yeah.
Well, when you start doing all these little extra things, it's just, you just can't make sense out of that.
Spending the time
I
and
liked
the money.
this fella, and I don't need to make the extra on
Right.
everything anymore. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that he paid a fair price and got something special.
Yeah.
And they were so delighted with it that everything was fulfilled, both sides.
No, that's great.
Now
And,
I can't wait till he gets it running in the spring. That'll be, I know that's going to be a nice day.
Yeah. Like as you know, I had my cases apart on my J motor KC 1000, and I actually mailed my transmission to you. So because I just
you
at the
reminded
time,
me of that, yeah.
Yeah. So since I found out about you, I had a couple of buddies who had your transmissions in their ZX10s, which had just come out, and like the new ZX10 had come out in 08. And these guys bought brand new ZX10s and sent you the transmissions to get a road racing cut on them. And ever since that happened, I've always just wanted a fast by gas transmission. And of course, on this J motor, worked out good because when I bought the bike, it was slipping out of second gear on decel. and
Yeah.
it was a perfect opportunity to get one of your transmissions.
Yeah.
But when I
Fix
put
all
mine
that.
back together, everything was completely clean to pure aluminum. All my side covers were powder coated. All my hardware was placed. Every seal, every gasket. Same kind of treatment. I haven't built my head yet, but I do have a 1075 cylinder on it.
Mhm.
I'd like to buy a purpose-built head at some point, but you know what that costs, and
Yeah,
horsepower costs money, and
but
the
now that we're
cylinder has
pals, I bet you we could do something nice for you.
yeah, no, I
I'm sure
appreciate
of it.
that.
So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I got to scrape some money together before I talk about a
I
cylinder
know.
head from
Well,
you,
it'd be
but
nice to know what direction you're going, though.
yeah, I just want to, I'm just going to probably just do a nice, reliable street head.
Absolutely.
I still
Yeah.
want to be able to take this thing, a couple states over on a nice ride or something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, going through, you were running GPZs for how long? Probably till Hayabusa, or was there another model in between?
Oh, no. I switched in 92 to Suzuki platform. And I want to clarify, all through the 80s, we were doing plenty of Suzuki motors, too.
Sure, but it wasn't what you were running yourself personally?
No, I was running a Kawasaki through 91.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of historic videos out there that are, I think, plenty cool because they all the different years all the way up.
Yeah.
Old school videos.
Right.
And the Kawasaki's featured in plenty of them. And in 92, we built our first purpose-built pro stock level Suzuki bike and did really, really good with it. Matters of fact, a little side note.
And this was with liquid cooling at this point?
No. Oh, no.
Still
These
air.
are all air cooled.
Okay, no kidding.
Yeah, most everything we do is air cooled here. I mean, Hayabusas we do a real lot of too. But
now, is that part of the rules for certain classes to be air cooled, where you have to be air cooled?
No.
Okay.
No, it's mostly about engine size.
Gotcha.
Old school engines like these Kawasaki's, and in certain classes they certainly get some sort of a break, either slightly bigger motor or a weight advantage
for being air cooled,
only to be able to compete with these things they're building now.
Right.
The engines they're building now are off the charts.
Yeah.
Hayabusa, GSXRs, 14s, it's off the charts what you can buy. Yeah. You got to be extra careful on them things.
It's insane. It really
insane
is
for sure.
I
want to mention when I built my first Suzuki Pro Stock bike, it was really, really nice, and we did really good with racing it on the circuit. And at the end of the year, I got invited to race with Team USA in Japan.
Get out.
So I raced it. You should see the shipping thing. We went down to Houston, Texas, raced, won the race, possibly set a record, if I can recall. Then I had a big wooden crate delivered to the track, and I had to load it up and figure out how to get it to a trucking station. Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was there all night long packaging this bike up,
Sure.
Had to go on an airplane.
Oh, they flew it.
They flew, our whole team. Oh, this Yakamura guy or whatever his name was, he financed our whole team to come over and race against the Japanese on Mount Fuji.
Wow.
Talk about cool. So we were there a week. It was on this guy's dime. He brought the whole team. Later on, I'll show you a picture. It's awesome.
Okay.
Anyways, I won the race in Mount Fuji.
Okay.
And then when we went to go package the thing up in the same crate again, the crate was in rough shape from traveling.
Sure, yeah.
And I said to my connection over there, I says, well, we need some wood. And, they don't speak perfect English, so I'm trying to describe wood. And, I'm showing them this one here. This is broken, no good. And I new wood. Oh, he went to the store, come back a couple hours later. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, no.
Dark and everything. Comes back, and he's got these little tiny pieces of wood. Little dinky. I needed 2x4s.
To reinforce the crate?
Of course. And he did. That's all they had. They don't have wood.
Really?
No.
What a bizarre thing. I never would have anticipated.
There's a lot of little idiosyncrasies about Japan.
Sure.
And one was they didn't have wood. I mean, you'd think the guy knew how to get wood, but I mean, we're up on a mountain too, Mount
Yeah.
Fuji.
Oh, right.
Incredibly scenic and beautiful.
I'm
All
sure.
that. Well, anyways, so that was a nice thing. And then we got the bike back, and I had it shipped right to another race. Now, I used to race 23 times a year. Think about that.
That's half the year.
I'm in a northern state.
Yeah.
Where are you going to race?
Oh,
Pennsylvania?
I know.
I don't think so.
No.
No, you got to travel.
Right.
So we've raced in Arizona, California, Florida a lot, Texas, Puerto Rico.
Places that you could race year round.
Yeah, Puerto Rico, Japan. You talk about a trip. Whew. And but it was wonderful, and that was the beginning of my Suzuki thing. So I was showing that thing off, and we caught on to that pretty quickly. And now we've progressed into almost ridiculous levels of power now.
Sure. Now, what motor was the Suzuki motor that really?
GS 1100.
Okay, so
or
essentially
a GS 1150.
Right.
Same as a
so
J
same
model.
as like a Bandit motor, or different than the Bandit motor?
Bandit was maybe just a tick after that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these are in the mid 80s.
Yep.
Early 80s, actually.
So in the actual air-cooled GSs, like a GS 1100E, for example. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we.
So that was the motor that you were putting in your chassis at that time.
Yep.
Okay.
And the 1150 is still a very desirable engine.
I'm sure.
Right now, 1150, they only made it 2 years, maybe 2.5 years.
Right, yeah.
And I'd like to score a few of them myself right now. But anyways, that's what, if you're going to build one and spend some money, that's generally the one you would build.
Really?
Nowadays, it seems the sway would be, you might as well build a Hayabusa. There's some advantages in drag racing.
Yeah.
They're already fast.
Yeah.
And you can make them sick fast.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's a lot of guys who would just buy a stock Hayabusa from Hevler's when I was working there. They would ratchet strap the forks down and go.
I bought the first one he got in.
Did you really? No kidding. Yeah.
It was a black one in 1999. Yep.
Yeah. And then that's also something that's neat, and something that I think is valuable is that, over the years that you've been doing this, you said 50 years, right? I mean, you've been doing this, and, you use local shops for your OEM parts and stuff, and support shops that have been around like that. And
oh, absolutely.
I always think it's so important for shops to support each other, and a lot of times that's not the case. And I just, I try not to hang out with those shop owners, I guess. But nobody's really at the end of the day stepping on each other's toes. I mean, the customer that you want, is not the customer that wants to go buy, a Kawasaki side by side. You're not really trying to get into that business. You're in your own wheelhouse.
No, we have our own wheelhouse. Exactly. Yeah. We have a pretty strong niche in the drag racing thing. People count on us for a lot of exotic things, like seriously exotic transmissions. We do. And we have that, I don't want to say down pat, but pretty much. Yeah.
And a lot of the biggest names in like drag racing supply stores are carrying your parts.
Oh yeah.
Like Schnitz, for example. I know that
sells stuff. We're real popular with the clutch plates and a lot of ignition components and things. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you do a lot of your manufacturing of your proprietary parts here, right?
Yes, exactly.
So you have a full machine
shop. Now we might have an outside CNC shop
to
make the productions.
Right.
But you got to make the prototype to start out with.
They're just filling your order at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Essentially, I would either design something, make it here, and my machinist would make it here, and then we would try it on my bike or on whatever.
To make sure it's going to work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then if they work really good, you brag about it.
Yeah.
Get them made.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I think that's interesting about, building performance motors, and, I like a little bit of a hot rod touch to a motor, but at the end of the day, really, to be honest, drag racing just scares the hell out of me. I just feel like I would just flip over backwards and the bike would come down, and I just
well, it takes some practice and some skills.
Yeah.
Remember, I started on a 305 Honda.
Yeah.
And now I ride something that's off the charts.
Right.
But it's not scary as fast as this thing is. It's not scary to me. I've been doing this is what I do.
Yeah.
But it still gets your attention.
I think just the fast launch is what scares me. I don't mind going fast, and I don't mind ripping it wide open and all that. But the fast launch, I just feel like there's just so much that could go wrong, and that just in that one one little section of the
Yeah,
race,
so my
But that's really the most important part of the race is the launch, right?
oh boy,
And having the machine under you.
yeah. So my bike is my current bike. Um, it- People could see videos of it on YouTube all over the place just by looking up either Paul Gast drag racing or Fast by Gast.
Yeah,
And when you see a red bike, big red drag bike, that's
yeah,
me. And there's
yeah.
some great videos out there.
I'm sure,
There's a bunch of them.
yeah, and somehow I always somehow any new articles are always coming out about you all the time, and somehow they always end up in front of my eyes, and I like I said, I don't particularly spend a lot of time in the drag racing community as far as motorcycles, but I am shopping performance parts for my own motor, and making my little wish list of stuff like that, and it's just wild to see just how relevant you've managed to stay for so long, because how many guys have come and gone in drag racing since you've been around?
Yeah, I must say I'm quite proud of that very fact.
Yeah, the longevity is
yeah.
really one of the most impressive things about it.
And I hear another thing that I'm really pleased and proud about, and is when a lot of prominent racers out there, a lot of them are my friends nowadays too, of course, and they say, Paul, when you're done doing this, what the hell are we going to do? And I go, well, I'm flattered, but we'll figure it out. And I'm not going anywhere today.
No, definitely not.
I'm not going anywhere today. Obviously, the time's going to come someday, but
sure.
My racing is certainly going to taper off. I'm 76, so I mean, come on, how long are you supposed to do this? But I am very fortunate and blessed with good health.
Yeah.
And I still can do the bike as good as I ever could.
Sure.
As soon as I see a diminish of any kind, I'll get the golf clubs back out.
Of course, yeah. I think this too, because you're probably not someone that will ever really truly retire, right?
I'm not thinking I'm the retiring, sitting on the couch type.
Right, and I think that's actually, I really do believe that, as we age, having something that you really like, some work that needs to be done that you're passionate about, is what it is, because so many guys retire and they sit on the couch and then they're not with us anymore.
Oh no, I want to be here in the morning.
Yeah,
because I
you got stuff that's got to get done.
Orders or anything.
Yeah,
I got stuff I got to get done.
Yeah,
but I like what I'm doing, or I would not do it. I must say that.
Okay, now that's going to be my next question, because exclusively with this podcast, I'm only interviewing people who really have somehow found a way to maintain the passion and the joy in it, because I'm sure you've seen, you've been around as well. So many people get into it and they lose the love for the hobby. And throughout my 20 years working in bikes, there's been times where, I just wanted to kick my own bike over and say, I need to find a new hobby, because now I turned bikes into my career. So what would be some tips for anybody that you think is in an industry, whether it's motorcycles or anything, they're in an industry that they were passionate about and are finding trouble keeping the passion alive?
Well, we've had some, love it. We've had people that maybe suffered a little bit of burnout.
Sure.
Okay. With their drag racing, their bike, maybe after, decades of doing it, a little burnout, they go get either a drag car for something different, or they go get a boat to go drink beer on the boat. And then 2 years later, they're out looking for the bike again.
Okay, so
it does kind of come back.
Yeah,
they are either they're the word's passionate. They're passionate about the bike thing. They weren't as passionate about getting this car thing. Very few go and then do that. Yeah. They do it for a bit and say, "Oh man, it's
trying to fill a hole that only a drag bike can fill."
So I mean, a passion of something, I have it. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I can see it clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily know that everybody is going to have
the same luck.
If you go to dog shows all the time, you could experience a burnout, I suppose, and then maybe pick it up again a little bit later.
Sure.
But you gotta to be passionate about something, you gotta really love it. And I don't know that that's for everybody. Yeah. I'm not sure there's a manual for that one.
No, I think you're probably right. Yeah. You kind of have to find your own way with it.
Now remember, it's easier when you happen to be fortunate or even maybe kind of good at it.
Right. Well,
It does make
that
things a
certainly
little,
does
little
help.
bit
Yeah.
easier. If you're out getting pounded at the drag strip every day, that could wear on you as
Sure.
well.
That
But
makes
what it
sense.
did to me was it made me want to do better. It wanted
Right.
me to
Yeah.
dig in and do better. And I was fortunate enough to have success doing such. But
Yeah.
I don't know that it's just everybody. I
Right.
wouldn't certainly knock anybody that's, I mean, I know plenty of people who've been trying hard for a long time and they continue to try.
Yeah.
And I find that very credible, and I'm just happy for them.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
like doing it and they keep trying, and I tell them your day's coming.
Yeah.
I said, I don't like running.
I mean, a lot of things have a learning curve that's different for other people. Like you said, when you first kind of got on a bike and just you weren't even thinking twice. You were just having a good time, and you started noticing that you're beating these guys that have been doing it longer, and you kind of just followed that talent, and it's become an entire career and a worldwide empire.
If I sucked at it, I probably wouldn't have been sitting here right now. I mean, I wouldn't have went this direction.
Sure.
You know, there's other things I'm sure I could have done.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did this. I like being in my own business.
Yeah.
Controlling all that.
Of course.
I don't seem to get a real lot of time off, but I live a mile from here. So this is very convenient for me to blast home and see my wife and dog and things like that. I like that a lot. That's a good situation. And she's a big supporter of mine, Dana is.
Yeah, good.
And she probably wouldn't mind it if I, thought about wrapping up someday, but she don't. I said, be careful what you're asking for. I'm not sure you want me sitting on the couch next year.
Right.
Divorced in a year.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes so my shop is right on my residential property, and I'll go in just to maybe have some lunch or say hi to my wife real quick, and I find out real quick I'm actually interrupting her routine when I stop in there. So it works out good to have that balance and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were talking earlier about how you said you were at some track and you don't remember if you set a record anymore. So just to give everybody an idea that's listening that might not be familiar, I mean, a lot of times people will, set one record at one point in their life, and they will talk about that record every day for the rest of their life to anybody they ever want to brag to. But someone like yourself at this point, I mean, I'm sitting in a room with hundreds of plaques and trophies, and I think the room that we came in here from had hundreds of plaques and trophies, and you probably couldn't even put an estimate on how many trophies you have or track records you have, or could you?
Well, we are the record holder currently in the class that I run, and how many? No, but I've set records throughout my whole career, racing career, let's call it.
Yeah.
To the tune of I 30, 40 maybe even.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of them. And the wins, hard to say, a couple hundred.
Right. And are we talking like track records or series records?
Well, I mean, track records, I don't know. I'm talking about
series. So a track record, you could have a million track records out there and you wouldn't even know because you don't follow it.
Yeah. But we're talking about like national event wins or national records.
So when you're talking about this is how many records I have, this is only like top tier stuff and not like local track. Oh, I set a record at Lancaster.
The bike I have now is not capable of running more at the local tracks so much.
Yeah, okay.
But I've heard a lot of good about Empire Dragway now.
Yeah.
They've done some wonderful upgrades out there, so I'm sure I could do that.
Okay.
But the bike is so fast, you got to have a top-notch facility. I stay away from the ones that are a little bit more like the farm tracks and the backyard stuff. I need really good stuff to run something as dramatic as this is. And then any of your listeners watch any of these videos, they'll get that quick. Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'm going to put a couple links of your choosing in the description of the podcast, so that way anybody that wants to find out more can just easily click those and be right where they want to be. So I had a good question, but I've lost it. But,
that's okay.
But really, it's just incredible to see what you do here. And, that you've been able to maintain so much passion and had so much success in it. And I really appreciate you coming on here with me today and talking a little bit with me. Right now, I'm kind of just doing a pilot season. And if people like what they hear, I'll probably try to continue to do it. And maybe at some point you'd like to come back and we could talk more about some other stuff.
Absolutely.
But
May I just give you a quick briefing on the vehicle I race now?
of course, we have as much time as you have, sir.
So the bike I have now is a homemade bike. It happens to be a Timberland chassis, and the engine is full fast by Gast.
Okay.
All billet engine, very, very specific.
When you say billet engine, you mean you're
you
machining
make
your own
everything.
cases?
The cases are the only thing
Okay.
that are modified stock parts. The rest
Okay.
of the engine is got to be made.
Get
and
out.
we do that here. Yeah, and the engine is 1,800 cc's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It spins 13,200 RPMs.
Okay.
That's up there. Now remember, we're
For
not
the
talking
motor
about,
that size, yeah.
We're not talking about a little 750 sport bike that goes 15 grand. That's not the case. This is an old school style engine, but it's got nitrous oxide.
Okay.
Pretty good dose.
Sure.
And it's got 600 horsepower.
600 horsepower and 1,800 cc's.
Yeah.
Holy.
And oh yeah, and it's got it does the 60-foot time clock from 0 to the 60-foot marker, which is about 75 miles an hour, I'm thinking, in 0.9 seconds. So less than 1 second.
0 to 75 before the first second has elapsed?
Yeah, less than a second. Yeah. And it's the and that's the record-holding bike in the 8th mile. The bike is over the last 10 years. The bikes in general in my class, but this particular one, have gotten to be virtually too fast to run the old classic quarter mile.
Okay.
It's 8th mile racing now.
Yeah.
Much safer. The speeds that we'd be running in the quarter mile would be in the 220 type thing.
Right.
And guess who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah.
I have no interest in that.
Right. Okay.
I mean, because then something just, you hit something on the track. I mean, you don't need.
Right. There's just,
I don't
at that
need
speed,
that.
there's too much.
The racing now is kept closer in front of the fans because it's a shorter distance.
Yeah.
And the races are closer. Even if you have a performance edge on the other guy of some considerable amount, it's still pretty close down at the end, because in the quarter mile you would separate more, and I love this 8th mile.
So really, it's kind of funny. I never thought about that, but basically, the evolution of drag racing bikes to the point where a quarter mile would put you way over 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They've actually.
Now there's still classes that run the quarter mile.
Right.
I don't agree with it.
Okay.
But I don't speak on it because I don't care what they do.
Right. Sure.
I like I like that they switched ours to 8th mile.
Yeah.
A quick analogy to that would be NHRA racing, which is very popular on TV.
Sure,
the funny cars, Top Fuel dragsters, and all these things.
And they race Harleys too with that, right?
The Harleys are gone now, but they run pro stock bikes still. And they're very, very popular. And in the case of the fuel cars, funny cars, Top Fuel dragsters, some years ago, I'm going to guess 10 years ago, could be 12, they switched from quarter mile to 1,000 feet. Okay. So now they have 320 feet more of slowing down room instead of accelerating room, because they were having trouble stopping. Yeah. Because remember, these drag strips are built in the 60s. And now, they might even be some more modern ones and whatever, or updates and things. But the tracks, the speeds got to be up so fast, 345 miles an hour, and now you got to stop it right now. Right. So you see them on TV, pop the parachute. Yep. Oops, the parachute fails. You're crashing. Right. You can't. I mean, there's no stopping. Yeah. So the highlight reel of the crashes was too bad. They may have lost a life or two along the way. Sure. Not good. Nobody wants that. This is not to be fun. Right. And I am just pleased that the class I run is 8th mile now. Yeah. I tell people, they go quarter mile. I go, well, you go grab your helmet and let's see how you do. Right. You'd be jumping off this thing so fast your eyeballs would cross. Absolutely. So I mean, you don't want, I just like that. Oh, and the other word, same thing with the fuel cars, perfect analogy between the two, is attrition. The parts attrition by running a fuel car that last 320 feet. Yeah. It was just, they were blowing up at the finish line. Sure. Bad. They still do, but not near as much. I mean, that was getting to be a really bad thing. Yeah. Our bikes, to run the quarter mile, we would have to detune them so that they would even survive that far.
Okay.
These
okay.
motors are short-lived.
Oh, for
They got
sure.
a short
Yeah.
fuse on them.
Yeah.
We light the fuse on the starting line. It's only so long before that party's over.
I
So,
think what you're saying, I think everybody runs into, and I'll put some performance parts on for a customer and stuff like that. I don't mind doing that. But when you're building stuff to the levels that you are, there's a reason the factory didn't build them this way, because they want them to go 100,000 miles. So like on your drag race bike, for instance, how often are you going and refreshing that motor?
every event.
Every event.
Yeah, so
down
every
to the
weekend,
crank.
every time I take the bike out, remember I'm traveling now.
Right.
They're not racing here in Kenmore.
Sure,
we got to travel. So when I travel, and I travel way less than I used to, dramatically less.
You mentioned, yeah.
So when I'm going to drive to South Georgia, okay, it's a big trip. I'm blessed to have a great driver to do so.
Good.
But it's still a big deal to go. I'm not going down there with something that I didn't check out.
Right.
Because you can fix things when, ooh, look at that. What's that mark on that piston from? You fix that kind of thing before you even go back out.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in the heat of a race, if it's got a little something with a piston, I mean, you just live with it and keep going and do the best you can do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we've never broke one in the event,
right?
But not very often. Usually you get them tuned in pretty good during qualifying, and then now you're into the event.
Right,
and
okay.
Make 5 or 6 runs on the whole event is all. And so the vehicle goes 2 miles under power before it gets rebuilt.
Right. Yeah.
If you add it up.
See, I think a lot of people don't get that, and especially
amount of work.
I get inquiries all the time, because at the end of the day, like if somebody says, "Hey, I want to put this cam in my bike," or I want to do this and that, I don't mind doing some stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But when you get into actually blueprinting an entire motor, it's not just. I always say a guy with a credit card and a parts catalog is really dangerous because there's a lot of times you can kind of put all these components together and they might all be great components, but they don't work together, and obviously, as you know, there's not a lot of room for error in a motor that's just like what you're saying, revs up to almost 14,000, and the clearances are just so tight. And so for instance, I know I said we wouldn't get too much into the tech details, but on your bike, what is your compression ratio that you're running on that? And this is at the 1800, right? That
so
revs to 13 something.
The compression is reduced a little bit because of the nitrous oxide
that makes sense.
load.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of bring that back.
Yeah.
So my motor's right at about 14.5 to 1.
That is still way higher than street. Oh my God. Okay.
Well, I don't know. There's these Hayabusas and things. They got some pop on them. Certainly when we're done working on them, they do. We put dome pistons in and things like that. So there's a lot of compression. Now, each time I make a run, and I have 3 computers on the bike.
Okay.
Yeah, all data recorders and operational ones for the ignition system and such. And the nitrous oxide controllers. So there's 3 computers, and I carry a pretty fancy little 360 GoPro, and I put it. Yeah, and there's some of those videos out there too.
Yeah, neat.
And I put it right on the front frame so that when I turn that on when I'm gonna make my run, now I can watch the front wheel lift, how it's carrying the wheel. I can hear the engine through all the shift points. I can kind of tune accordingly. Yeah. So that's all good stuff there. And each time I make a run, the first thing I do, I don't even have my leathers off yet, and I go up to the engine and I check the compression. We have a big wrench, breaker bar wrench that you put on the end of the crankshaft. Okay. And we check the compression. Yeah. So just by
turning the motor by hand.
Turn it by hand and give it a good snap. Yeah. And it should have 4 snaps because there's 4 cylinders. Right. If it's got 3 and then 1 dead one,
I see. Okay.
Got a piston. Now, when you run nitrous, we run exotic fuels too. You are subject to having a piston occasionally.
Of course, right.
Yeah. Or you're not pushing it.
Yeah. And right. If you're on the limits, I mean, literally that's what the limit is how fast can I go before it comes apart.
Yeah, I want to run mine 1% under that.
Right, exactly. Just enough to get to the end of the weekend.
Right at that point. Yeah. Right. If it's all expired by the end of the weekend, if I was in the final run and maybe even one or something, I mean, that's all good stuff. But you got to go through it. And I'm working on one of my engines even right now, constantly. I don't even know where I'm going next.
Right, right,
because
right.
it's wintertime here. So
Yeah.
I think I just want to have everything ready in case all of a sudden I'm heading out to go do something and stuff like that.
Sure.
So
I got another follow-up question actually now,
sure.
because this is something I think that you probably have seen over the years that a lot of people who maybe wanted to continue to build alongside of you in their own businesses. You're in your 70s, you've been doing this since the 60s, and you just said you got 3 computers on your bike. Now, things obviously have changed over the years with technology.
Mm-hmm.
When you first started working on these things, they were air-cooled 2-strokes with points and
Yep.
carburetors on
Yeah.
them. But you've somehow been able to keep up with what the latest, greatest technology is and been able to use it to your advantage to continue to be successful. Where a lot of times people, I think, a lot of people don't even like electronic ignition. They'll say, "Oh, I'm keeping my points. I don't want that Dyna S on here,"
Yeah.
and that's fine too, But so, what kind of a challenge has that been, or have you enjoyed kind of seeing the evolution of technology?
I've enjoyed the evolution. So this is the way I rate my computer knowledges. I'm okay at my desk.
Okay.
I'm okay with my bike as far as hooking it all up and retrieving the information, feeding the information to the bike, because I make a change every
Right.
single run.
Sure.
I've never said I'm happy with this. Nope.
You're always looking.
Sometimes it's only 100th of this or 1,000th of that, but I make a change because I'm watching the wheel speed and I'm watching these things. And if the wheel speed's not hot, I need to make it hotter because they ain't going to go fast if you don't have the power in there. And if it's too much, it spins. It's just an ever just ongoing evolution of adjusting and tuning.
Right.
And that's what I like to do. And I think I'm pretty good at that. But if you asked me to wire one up and get all that going from scratch, I'm probably not the guy.
Sure.
I'm not the guy who installs your electronics. We might sell them and things like that, but I'm not really the guy hooking it all up. The time is brutal.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
To do that. And there's some specialty guys, I know most of them, that are really good at it, and that's who I would send people to that have that niche.
Right. So, so you're using these electronics as another tool in your toolbox.
Exactly.
Another way where you can look at data and find another way to go faster.
Yeah.
Even if it's just that 1/100th, you're just looking for everything.
I'd be okay if the computers were all of a sudden banned. Because I probably got a pretty good seat of the pants feel of tuning and riding.
Sure.
I've got a lot of runs on that.
Yeah.
And but that's one of the things I do. It's not uncommon for me to be sitting out there in my trailer at 1 a.m. with a coffee and staring at my screens and just trying to come up with. And I write all my script out for what am I going to do for the morning, and I think about it then when I go into bed.
Yep.
I just keep thinking about all these little things. And what I wrote down, then in the morning I go back out and apply, maybe even make a change. I've jumped out of bed before and had to write down a change so I don't forget it.
Sure, as you can see, I have a regular paper journal with a pen. It goes everywhere with me, and it has all my things I have to get done that day.
Oh, I'm a note.
Guy. I don't care what technology comes out. There's something about pen to paper that just feels right. Yeah. And if I'm laying in bed and next to my wife and we're trying to fall asleep and something pops in my head, I'm writing it right there.
Yeah. I'm dead without Post-it notes.
Yeah. So I don't spend as much time as a desk as I did like when I was working for other shops, but when I did, my computer, the whole outside edge of my computer was just Post-it notes in every direction.
That's and
they were all just little tasks I had to do, and when they were done, they'd go in the garbage and another one would replace it. And something else I had to do, but yeah, that's really unique to see, because I guess I personally prefer carbs over fuel injection. I mean, if I just had a
I run carburetors.
No, I know that you do.
Yeah, I'm the only bike in my class, and I'm the record holder that runs carburetors.
Really?
I'm the only one.
No kidding.
Yeah.
A lot of
people.
Now
the other guys don't get it. They can't imagine that this happens, but.
It's because it's maybe unfamiliar.
Well, I think it's because we invented these carburetors, so we kind of only got,
Are you still using Electron carbs?
Oh yeah.
You are, okay. So Electron carbs is something that you kind of like helped co-develop. It wasn't your brand originally, right?
No, it was not my brand originally.
But you were using them.
Norm Quantz invented them from Michigan. He was a Detroit guy, and he did a lot in the auto. He was an inventor,
Yeah.
and he invented this carburetor. So they had him out there on a couple dirt bikes and a couple
Right.
things, and
Yeah.
Kenny Roberts was one of their early on
Okay.
successes.
Yeah. Cool.
Like a pal, and all these kind of things. Then all of a sudden, I wanted to try them. And this
Okay.
would be in the 1977 range on
Okay.
the two
Wow.
strokes. Yeah, and it caught on, and I sold them to everybody. You know, if you were drag racing, now.
Now, were you buying the bodies and then you were setting them up for specific bikes?
Well, in the beginning, we had to do it that way, but then
Okay.
I would order them the way I wanted them.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and then now what happened is in the early '80s when I went into the four-stroke stuff, I just had it in me one time to try it.
Yeah.
On the four-stroke, it was a bit of a challenge.
Okay. And up till now, you had only run them on a two-stroke.
Exactly.
Because I know they were
wasn't
popular.
really into the four-stroke stuff. I was so busy doing what I do.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, this is one of the biggest successes of my company. Is this evolution and branding and selling without computers. There's no internet when we did all this.
Yeah.
These electron carbs. It was one of them things that you had to have. And they
so
were
anybody that wanted the
expensive.
best had to have them.
Yeah, everybody. So everybody ran them, pro stock, everything. They were running them forever. Then eventually, the fuel injection caught on, and I'm going to guess that was more like in maybe the late O's.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of times, there's guys that actually retrofit like carbs onto a lot of fuel injected bikes, and
Electrons still
have good
sell
results
carbs for dirt bikes and stuff. You know, the drag bike thing is pretty much our niche.
Right, of course, yeah.
There was a time frame where snowmobiles all had them.
So that was my first experience with Electron. Was with
but now
had them,
sleds are so fast.
Yeah.
And why would you do anything to them? I mean, they're so fast. It's crazy.
Insane.
Same thing with these street bikes.
Yeah.
This is the evolution of everything.
Right.
I was blessed to be brought up through the time frame when things were crude and they weren't fast. Maybe you thought they were a little fast, but there was a lot of room to make things much faster.
Without going too far.
Right, and that's my company right there.
Yeah, and it's funny because, my KZ1000, when I first started riding bikes, I was buying old UJM bikes. Kawasaki was mostly my favorite brand back then. Just old late 70s, early 80s stuff, and that's what I was riding. And then, eventually I started riding with guys that had modern sport bikes, and then I had a GSXR 750. And, as I got a little bit older, I realized that, this GSXR 750, I'm sorry. By the time I had the motor built and everything like that, this thing would do 180 all day. And it was just, it's really I'm sure you've gone that speed and faster, and there is like a certain thing about that kind of speed that if you haven't gone that speed, you don't know how to really explain what it is. But so I really just, at the end of the day, I want to be able to open my throttle up all the way every time I get on the bike. And if I bought a modern ZX10 or CBR 1000 or any of these bikes, I wouldn't be able to tinker with it because it's already faster than what I want or need.
Yeah, well, so certainly than you need.
Yeah, certainly than I need. But
you got to be safe too. I tell everybody, man, just mostly in the drag race thing, because that's kind of what I do. I tell everybody, man, got to be safe.
Absolutely.
You're doing something that's meant to be fun. Don't be nuts. So if a guy should wreck or something, I just feel like that. Unless there's a mechanical or a deer jumps in front of you. You probably can avoid a lot of these things.
Sure.
I know. I just don't feel I have wrecking in me because I've been doing this for so long that I know all the little warning signs and I have control over the situation.
Sure.
You gotta have control over what's going on. It's about that.
Yeah, I think with anything, especially something that can get dangerous really fast, being safe isn't just about just kind of thinking about safety. You're actually looking at everything, feeling it out, and making sure that that it's going to be a safe condition for yourself and everything.
And of course, in drag racing, it's all controlled atmosphere. You have sidewalls, you have the gear on, the protective gear, and the gears evolved with whenever, just like an airplane crash. Airplanes are far better off after they learn from a problem. just like in
Yeah.
racing, there's been the reason they went from 1320 to 1,000 foot in the fuel cars is because they were not safe at those
Right.
speeds. They couldn't stop the darn things.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? Buy more land? Well, they don't want to sell it down there. You know,
Sure.
you had to do something. And guess what?
Yeah.
The races are much better for it.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good.
So I might add, because
Sure.
we're probably winding down, I just want to add that we're on Grand Island, New York, between Buffalo and Niagara Falls. So I assume there might be some locals listening to this kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely will be. Yeah.
Right. So in the spring or the summer, if you're driving by and you want to see a couple of cool things, you can come in and get the nickel tour really quick.
Really?
Typically, we got the race bike usually sitting around here, the rig. We happen to have a couple of really cool performance cars here. And
Get out. Okay.
oh yeah.
Maybe I will get the nickel tool before I take off today.
Yes, you
Sure.
will.
I would love that. Yeah. Good. Well, Paul, I really appreciate your time. You're absolutely a legend in many different ways. Certainly in drag racing, and just seem like a great guy, and still takes a lot of joy from motorcycling and just having a passion for the industry. So I really appreciate you coming on. Like Paul said, Fast by Gast, just a simple Google search will give you plenty to read and videos to watch. You know, I've definitely I've seen a ton of that stuff.
And I've got a lot of interviews out there on YouTube.
Oh, perfect.
So you can,
yeah.
then you can kind of see, how handsome I am.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll have some links in the description, so that way anybody that wants to know more can easily find out more. Thanks to anybody who tuned into this one. The first season of this podcast is now available on YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Until next time, ride safe and enjoy the miles.
See you. Bye.